What's going on, YouTube? Bacon here, bringing you another video. This one's going to be my week 2 battle for the SSBL Minors. Sorry for a little bit of delay in uploading this game and some of my BPL and OLT stuff. I'll get to it when I get to it. I've just been kind of busy IRL. Nothing bad, just a lot of stuff going on lately. So I'll catch up when I can, but yeah, this week we are taking on Leo, coach of the Mexico City Wallbreakers. We're coming into this game at 1-0 off a big win in week 1. Leo is coming in at 0-1, -3, but it was a very close -3, I think, in his first game. I can't remember if there was some hacks involved or something like that, but I remember it being a very close game for him. And he's obviously got an extremely threatening team. I think his team might have been rated one of the best when they did the preseason kind of power ranking stuff. It's a very, very scary team, but yeah, let's get right into the team builder here. Look at what he's got and what I'm bringing here. So with what he's got the Megalodios, Clefable, Excadrill, Tyranitar, Toxapex, Piloswine, Thundurus, Infernape, and Leafeon, and his Z user is the Excadrill. So obviously a very threatening 9-mon team. Like, he drafted really, really well. I'm really tired of seeing Tyranitar at this point. Between this, VPL, and OLT, I've had to prep for Tyranitar basically all in the same week for all 3 leagues, and man, it is exhausting. And I think 2 of these teams had Excadrill on them, the ones that had Tyranitar, so a little bit of repetitive prep here in the sense that, like, I have to prep for the same 2 mons over and over again just because when those games fell, but it is what it is. This should be at least the last time I have to see them for a little bit anyways. And of course they're very huge threats versus my team. Kind of right off the bat, Megalodios is a huge threat. That thing is bulky as all hell, so it's going to be really tough for me to take down without using my Mega Mawile to do so. He could be running Earthquake on his Megalodios to hit my Muck and to hit my Mawile, so that's something I'm going to have to keep an eye out for over the course of the game. If he's not running Earthquake, he might be running HP Fire instead, just to hit the Mawile a little bit harder. Because its special defense stat is pretty non-existent, and obviously it wouldn't get the Intimidate drop on it. So he may be running HP Fire over Earthquake, not really sure. I think 3 attacks Megalodios makes a lot of sense versus me, like 3 attacks Roost. Could definitely be something he could bring. Could try to bring like a Calm Mindset, but I feel like he just wouldn't be able to get through my team, especially with the Mega Mawile sitting around. If he's running like Dual Stab, that's definitely not viable. He could maybe run like Calm Mind with a Dragon move and HP Fire, something like that he could try. That wouldn't be so bad versus me, but yeah, Megalodios, just a really huge threat. That thing is really, really bulky. It's going to be very difficult for me to take down. The Clefable could run any number of sets this week. I do have to watch out for it carrying fire coverage for my Mega Mawile potentially. Moonblast is just pretty good to spam versus my team because my fairy resists are the Mawile and the Blacephalon, which are both pretty frail on the especially defensive side. Alolan Muck should be able to take some hits from that thing pretty well though, so that's kind of in my favor at least to that extent. I'm not sure whether he'd bring the Toxapex. Toxic Spikes aren't particularly good versus my team. I've got the Levitator and Rotom Wash and Uxie. I've got the Flying type and Gliscor. I've got the Poison type and a little Muck to scoop them up, and Mega Mawile is obviously immune. So they don't really hit a whole lot of stuff on my team. Plus I could be running Guts Hariyama, so I'm not really sure whether he'd want to bring the Toxic Spikes. Fizdef Toxapex is a decent switch into Mega Mawile. Obviously he's got to watch out for Thunder Punch, but that's something he could potentially bring versus me. Infernape is scary, Thundurus is scary, like his whole team, he's just got some threats on this team, man. But because he only has 9 Pokemon, it makes it a little bit easier on my end to kind of predict some of the things he's going to bring. His first 4, the Latias, Clefable, Excadrill, and T-Tar, I definitely expect to see. The Tyranitar is definitely going to be carrying an Ice move for my Gliscor, so definitely have to watch out for that. Otherwise, I could see him bringing a couple of things. I could see like a Fizdef Toxapex to pivot into my Mega Mawile. That makes some sense versus me. Thundurus makes sense. Infernape makes sense. The only thing I really don't expect to see in this game is the Leafeon. I think Leafeon has a really bad matchup versus me. And his other 8 mons are perfectly fine versus me. Even the Piloswine is pretty decent in this matchup. So I wouldn't be too surprised to see that thing. But yeah. With that being said, let's get right to my team builder and look at the team that I made for this week. So first things up here is Two-Face the Mega Mawile coming in with Play Rough, Iron Head, Sucker Punch, and Thunder Punch. Of course, Intimidate as my pre-Mega Evolution ability. Running a good bit of speed on this thing to creep a neutral-natured Clefable. If he's running like Modest Clefable or something like that, I should be able to outspeed it and KO that thing with an Iron Head. Iron Head's also going to put in a ton of damage on like his Piloswine. I was considering running Swords Dance on this over Ironhead, but I felt like having that damage output for the Piloswine was really important. If he's not running max HP Piloswine, Ironhead does have a chance to KO it, or if I get a little bit of previous chip on him, it should be able to do it that way. And obviously this is kind of my best offensive check to his Mega Latias. Even at full, I do live an HP Fire or Earthquake or whatever from the Mega Latias, so keeping this thing healthy will be pretty important to help check that thing. And obviously checking the Clefable will be really nice if he's running like a standard physically defensive set, Calm Mind, whatever. Mega Mawile being able to check that should be really nice for me over the course of the match. He really doesn't have great switch-ins to my Dual Stab, bar the Toxapex, which is why I'm running Thunder Punch. And Sucker Punch is just there to pick off things like the Latias, the Thundurus, things like that. Even the Infernape, if it's chipped down sufficiently, I'll drop to a Sucker Punch. So Mega Mawile here, I think, puts a lot of offensive pressure on his team. So hopefully that thing can put in some work this game. It is the first game that I'm bringing it to this season. So I'll be interested to see how it does. Next up here is Sweat the Superior, running Leftover Superior with Leaf Storm, Dragon Pulse, Substitute, and Glare. Pretty standard sub-Glare set on the Superior, 56 HP, with the most of the investment dumped into speed, so I'm running Timid pretty close to max speed to make sure I'm creeping the Latias, and then of course jumping the rest into special attack. Leaf Storm obviously gives me the nice +2 bonuses, but even at +2 I'm still only doing like 50% to Mega Latias with Dragon Pulse. Superior is kind of weak and Latias is super bulky, so that's not super surprising, but getting a Glare off on that thing could be really nice. Make sure my Mega Mawile can outspeed it and be able to KO that thing with a Play Rough. Getting a Glare off on Infernape if I sub as he goes into Infernape, something like that. That could also be very helpful for me in the long run. Just slowing that thing down would be really, really helpful, especially if he's running Choice Scarf Infernape to help deal with my Superior. It's going to be important to try and get a pair off on that thing, slow that thing down, and potentially open up a door for my Superior late game, actually, because his Grass Resists aren't the best, I'll say. Like, Infernape and Thundurus are pretty frail, so if I can start spamming some Leaf Storms at him late in the game, start stacking some boosts, this thing could be a huge threat to him in the late game as well. But like I mentioned, just spreading some chip around his team and potentially getting off some status is going to be really, really helpful for me. Obviously, if he's running Magic Guard Clefable, getting a Glare off on that thing would be nice too, because obviously Toxic and Burn and stuff aren't going to do anything to it. But getting a pair off on that thing would be really nice. Slow it down, get it slower than my Muck, get it slower than my Mawile guaranteed. Things like that could be really nice for me as well. Potentially also get some free turns off the yellow color. Next up is Nightshade the Gliscor, running Toxic Orb, Poison Heal, Stealth Rock, Earthquake, Tailwind, and Roost. I felt like Tailwind was really nice on this set, just to help, like I mentioned, Mega Mawile puts a lot of offensive pressure on his team, so the Tailwind there should allow my Mega Mawile to outspeed everything after the Tailwind boost and just start clicking buttons. I'm running pretty close to max Phys Def with an Impish Nature. I'm running just a little bit of speed in there to make sure I'm creeping a max speed Jolly Tyranitar, and I've got a little bit of Speed Def in there as well, so I can take an HP Ice from a Thundurus. If he's running Life Orb, I can't take HP Ice, I don't think, but you know, even running like max Speed Def, I don't think I could take a Life Orb HP Ice from the Thundurus, which is just insane. Like, that thing is a monster. But Stealth Rocks will be really nice to chip down his team. Things like the Infernape, which would typically be switching in and out pretty frequently, will get chipped down pretty quickly. Chipping down the Thundurus as well. Trying to get it in range of Sucker Punch from my Mawile would be really nice in the late game. And just kind of wearing down his team as a whole would be really, really good from the Gliscor here. Gliscor's not super important this match, especially if I can get Stealth Rocks up. It's not a whole lot that it's doing in this match, but it is a decent check to the Gliscor, the Excadrill and the Tyranitar. But like I mentioned, I do have to watch out for the Tyranitar carrying ice coverage. Next up here is Rotom Wash, running Leftovers Rotom Wash with Hydro Pump, Volt Switch, Will-O-Wisp, and Defog. Pretty close to max HP, a lot of defense investment, with again just enough speed to creep the Tyranitar. This is another pretty decent defensive pivot into the Tyranitar. Can throw off a Will-O-Wisp, burn that thing, kind of neutralize the threat. This is also a good switch in for a Sand Rush variant of Excadrill. Obviously, if he's running Sand Rush, he can't hit me with Earthquake. If he's running Mold Breaker, obviously I have to watch out for that, because he could go right through my Levitate and hit me with Earthquake, so definitely gonna have to be careful about that. I can live an Earthquake from full, but Definitely not something I necessarily want to be doing with my Rotom Wash. And if he's running Mold Breaker, Gliscor should be able to take on that fairly well, bar like SDZ move. Gliscor should be able to eat hits from that thing pretty well. So Rotom Wash plus Gliscor makes a pretty nice physically defensive core for my team. Bar the Thundurus, he really doesn't have a whole lot of special offense. Well, I guess the Latias as well. But a lot of his main offensive threats, like the Infernape, the Tyranitar, the Excadrill, are physically offensive threats. So the combination of Gliscor plus Rotom Wash is really nice to help deal with those. If he's running a choice locked variant of Thundy, he'll have some trouble breaking through like the combination of Gliscor and my Mawile, Serperior, because he's gonna get stuck in loops with like Thunderbolt or HP Ice if he's running a choiced variant of Thundurus. So I think Life Orb would make a lot of sense if he does bring that Burst Me, but in general, I think Rotom Wash plus Gliscor forms a pretty nice defensive core for his team here on the physically offensive side. And then on the especially offensive side, we got friend of Dave the Alolan Muck here, running Assault Vest Alolan Muck, Poison Touch, Poison Jab, Knockoff, Pursuit, and Shadow Sneak. Max HP, Max Attack, Adamant Nature. The Adamant Nature is really just helping me do enough damage to the Latias that a Poison Jab into Pursuit will KO it. Shadow Sneak is also nice to help pick that thing off if it's chipped. Nice to help pick off things like the Thundurus, the Infernape as well, if they're chipped. And just spreading poison around his team and removing items is going to be super valuable for my Alolan Muck. It's really only good switch into this thing is like Piloswine, for example, which is not going to appreciate being knocked off, of course, and the potential for a poison that comes with it. Poison Jab plus Poison Touch obviously gives me a 51% chance to poison things, so even if he goes into like Tyranitar, which is also a pretty good switch into Muck, knocking off that thing, again, there's a 30% chance to poison on the knockoff. If I'm clicking Poison Jab, there's a 51% chance that I'm going to poison, and chipping down the Tyranitar would be really nice. And I've got great switch-ins for Tyranitar in my Gliscor and my Rotom Wash there, so I'm not too concerned about that thing coming in on my Muck. But the AV is mainly there for the Mega Latias. That thing, like I mentioned, is a huge threat to my team. Definitely going to have to be a little bit worried about him running Earthquake on it, because Draco into Earthquake I don't think knocks me out from full, if I'm not mistaken, but it does do a huge chunk of damage to my Muck, so I definitely need to be concerned about that. And obviously this is kind of my best specially defensive check to his Thundurus, so Thundurus clicking Volt Switch could be somewhat problematic for me. Like, I might have to play some games with swapping into Gliscor and then baiting out the HP Ice to get my Muck in, but if I can Pursuit the Thundurus once, I could potentially put it in range of a Sucker Punch from my Mega Mawile after Stealth Rock, so that's something to note as well. Lastly here, we have Yo Mama, the Hariyama, coming here. Very different set from what I ran last week. Running Leftovers Hariyama with Thick Fat, Close Combat, Knockoff, Heavy Slam, and Fake Out. Running Max Fizdef with an Adamant Nature. A little bit into Spidef just so I can take some hits from the Thundurus as well. And then a good bit into Speed. I believe this was creeping a... No Speed Tyranitar, if I'm not mistaken. Not quite sure, but that looks like about what the investment would be. Anyways, the idea from the Hariyama is Heavy Slam 2-hit KOs physically defensive Clefable, which is nice. I could potentially be outspeeding that depending on his investment, and if I catch it on the switch in with a Heavy Slam, I could potentially knock it out with 2. Otherwise, Knockoff again is nice to spam versus team to help remove items. The Mega Latias could also come in on me, so Knockoff or Heavy Slam should be doing about 30 to 40% to that thing upon switch in. Obviously, before it's Mega Evolved. After it's Mega Evolved, it gets a significant amount of added bulk that's problematic for me. But just getting some good chip off on that thing, forcing it to roost so I can get my Muck in will be helpful over the course of the match. Close Combat hits like all of his physical offense really hard. Things like Infernape, Tyranitar, Excadrill, Piloswine really all do not appreciate taking a Close Combat from my Hariyama. Fake Out's there just to get some extra residual chip damage off on things like Infernape going for U-turn, Thundurus going for Volt Switch. Just trying to get those things down to in range of my priority users in my Muck and my Mawile, I think is really important over the course of the match. Plus Fake Out will allow me to get an extra turn of Leftovers recovery on my Hariyama should I need it going forward. Yeah, I feel like Hariyama once again is in a very good position this week against, like, I can come in on Tyranitar, I can come in on Piloswine, I can come in on Infernape, going for like Flare Blitz. If he's like banded Close Combat, that gets a little bit sketchy, but I can scout that out early in the match, get some Fake Out chip off, get some leftovers recovery, things like that. And basically, if he's running a choice variant of Infernape, him locking into Flare Blitz is basically hard denied by the combination of my Rotom Wash and my Hariyama here. So I think Hariyama's, again, poised to do really well in this game. It's a great switch into his physical offense mons, physically offensive mons as well. And yeah, let's get right into the match here. So looking at what he brought the Tyranitar, Excadrill, Infernape, Megalodios, Piloswine, and Clefable. So those 4 on the left, like I mentioned, were definitely big threats. The Infernape, I wasn't as sure was going to come. I thought maybe the Thunderish could show up. But kind of the T-Tar Drill I thought made a lot of sense for me, and then Latias Clefable as well. And then the Infernape Piloswine could have been Infernape Thundurus, could have been Piloswine Thundurus. Like, I felt like any of those permutations would have been pretty solid versus me. But definitely a very threatening team that he's brought here. My Hariyama is good against everything that's not Clefable or Latias, but I really don't want to be in a bad position versus either of those two turn 1. Definitely don't want him getting up his Stealth Rocks for free, so his only, kind of his main Stealth Rockers I feel like in this game would be the Piloswine or the Clefable. I think the T-Tar would be running a more offensive set, or potentially Assault Vest to help deal with my Blacephalon. And then the Excadrill I'm thinking would be like a Sandbrush Sweeper with Z move. So I'm thinking if he's running Stealth Rocks, it's on the Piloswine or the Clefable, and I don't want him getting those up early in the game, so I'm just going to lead with my Mega Mawile to deny that opportunity. And let's get right into the match here. So leading off with Mega Mawile here, put some offensive pressure on his team if he does decide to lead with the Piloswine. And either way, like, anything on his top row would get intimidated, so that eases my switch-ins in the back to things like Hariyama, Gliscor, Rotom Wash. And turn 1 here, I've got the Mega Mawile in front of the Clefable, and remember I did speed creep a modest, or kind of like a standard non-speed invested kind of Clefable, or non-speed boosting nature Clefable, so he basically needs to be timid to outspeed me here. So I'm like, okay, I'm just going to throw off an Iron Head turn 1, see what he wants to do. I really don't think he's going to stay in with the Clefable here, but he does stay in with the Clefable, and it turns out he is running Timid Life Orb Clefable and just blows me away with a Fire Blast. So kind of wasted my Mega Mawile here, and like I mentioned, that was a really important offensive check to things like the Piloswine, the Latias. It was supposed to be a good offensive check to this Clefable, but like I mentioned, Timid Life Orb Clefable with Fire Blast, really good prep on his end, and I'm short a Mega Mawile now, which really sucks for me for sure. Getting a Para off on stuff, or Tailwind, could have made my Mawile a lot more threatening in this game, but I essentially ended up wasting it off. It is good for me to know that this is Timid Clefable, because I know he's running a lot of speed investment, and he's not running Modest. But at the same time, like, losing my Mawile really sucks. So turn 1, already on the back foot. Gotta go out into my Muck here. I think there's no way he stays in with this Clefable, because it's actually really threatening versus my team. And he's got some good switch-ins in the Tyranitar, Excadrill, things like that. So I'm just gonna go for a knockoff here, remove the item of whatever wants to come in. So it turns out to be a Choice Band Tyranitar, running a Nerve actually. So since he's not running Sandstream on his Tyranitar, he's almost definitely Mold Breaker Excadrill, which is good for me to know, and I do get the Poison here, so this Tyranitar is really already getting pretty worn down early in the match here. I can go pretty freely out into my Hariyama here. I should take any hit he wants to go for. You can see that Crit Stone Edge does basically nothing, and with leftovers, plus the fact that he's almost definitely not staying in this turn, should be able to get my Hariyama back to a reasonable amount of HP. So I'm just going to throw off a Heavy Slam here, trying to catch the Clefable should he try to go that on close combat, but he just brings in the Mega Latias, and I do a decent chunk of damage here with the Heavy Slam because it's not Mega'd yet. But obviously I don't want to be risking my Hariyama yet, so predicting him to go for either a Draco or a Psychic type move. I'm just going to go out into my little Muck. This is basically here for the Latias only anyways. To some extent the Clefable as well, now that I know he's really offensive, but a little Muck comes out here. It still takes a solid chunk from this Draco Meteor. Like, Mega Latias is strong, it's bulky, it's terrifying, but at least now he's in range of a Pursuit if he switches out, so I'm just going to click Pursuit here as he shows the Roost. Good on his end to bring the Roost here, but I get a lucky crit with my Pursuit, so that means he's basically forced to Roost again if he wants his Mega Latias to do anything, which means this is actually a free knockoff for me this turn. So knockoff not only does more damage than Pursuit, because I know he's staying in this turn, but there's also the 30% chance for a Poison, which I do get once again. So Poison Touch luck, pretty good early in the game here, and it basically means this Mega Latias is useless at this point. And I'm just going to spam Pursuit at it, as he unfortunately misses a Draco Meteor. I'm not sure how much that necessarily mattered. We'll have to see later in the game, because I honestly don't really remember, but Pursuit plus Poison here is going to be able to take out this Mega Latias, so big threat off the board. My Muck is still valuable to help take on the Clefable, so I am going to save it. But unfortunate there for my opponent that I got the Poison Touch and then I dodged the Draco. But yeah, going to preserve my little Muck here. We do see Mold Breaker on the Excadrill. I'm going to go right out into my Gliscor and see what he wants to do. Obviously, if he's clicking Earthquake here, Iron Head, whatever, I should be able to take that fairly well because I am pretty physically defensive. But he goes right for the Swords Dance, and this is pretty scary for me. He's almost definitely Z-Steel. Like, he's got the Mold Breaker on there, so he can Earthquake my Rotom Wash anyway. So what I'm going to do here is scout for the Corkscrew Crash by going out into my Rotom Wash, and he does reveal it. So good thing that I scouted there. Z-Steel was the only thing that was going to knock out my Gliscor anyways, and Earthquake was pretty close to Oko in the Excadrill, so I felt like if he had it, he was going to go for the Corkscrew Crash, and he did, so we catch that with the Rotom Wash, and here I make the prediction that he's going to go for Iron Head, so, like, obviously I know he's Mold Breaker, and because he has Mold Breaker, he almost definitely has Earthquake, right? So the kind of quote-unquote reasonable play was for me to go out into my Gliscor, predicting an Earthquake. Predicting him to predict that, I decided to stay in with my Rotom Wash here, chew up the Iron Head that he was going to go for, and just fire off a Hydro Pump. Hydro Pump will OHKO this thing from full. I don't get flinched, but unfortunately I missed the Hydro Pump, so already a lot of hacks on both sides early in the game here. Me missing this Hydro Pump, him getting crit on his Latios and missing the Draco. Like, already 11 turns in, good bit of hacks to start off the game. Unfortunately we get punished for making the right prediction there, but what are you going to do? It's Pokemon. Now we're playing the game again, but he realizes that I'm willing to stay in at this point, so I'm going to go into Gliscor, predicting him to Earthquake here, so I do get that prediction right as well, so really dancing around this Excadrill at this point in the game, but thankfully able to dodge an Earthquake there. I just go right for Earthquake of my own. He goes for Iron Head, which as you can see is going to 2-hit KO me because I'm not max Vizdef, but Earthquake there, I'm going to get another kind of lucky crit and knock out the Excadrill. I don't know if that crit mattered, it depends on his HP investment. Earthquake's technically a roll, I think, to OHKO the Excadrill if he's running no bulk, but assuming he was running some, that Earthquake crit probably mattered. Obviously, like I mentioned, my Gliscor is not super important in this game, so I wouldn't have minded sacking it to get a ton of chip damage off on that Excadrill, put it in range of my Superior, or even Fake Out from my Hariyama, honestly, or Shadow Sneak from my Muck. But again, a little more hacks there with the crit on the Excadrill, and Gliscor's in here versus the Clefable, and I really don't have great switch-ins for this Clefable. Like, I'm going to get 2-hit KO'd with my Alolan Muck if I go out into it as he clicks Moonblast. He could be carrying Ice Beam, I'm not really sure. But what I want to do here is actually roost and scout out whether he's carrying the Ice Beam. I've seen Fire Blast, I've seen Moonblast. He might be carrying like Soft Boil plus Stealth Rock, he might be carrying Thunder Wave, might be carrying Ice Beam, so he goes for Moonblast here, so I don't think he has the Ice Beam on it now. And you can see he did 55% there. I'm just going to get my Stealth Rocks this turn, thinking I'm going to live another Moonblast, but I really didn't calc this one, and 55% was actually a pretty low roll on the Moonblast, so this second one is going to take out my Gliscor. Like I mentioned, Gliscor wasn't super critical in this match, especially now that the Excadrill is gone, but we do get up Stealth Rocks there to help chip down the Piloswine and the Infernape, which is good for me, and I'm just going to go out into Superior here. Now, because I know that this is Timid Clefable, he's only got a 12% chance of OHKOing me with a Fire Blast here, I believe. Maybe even a 6%. It's very low. Like, the roll is heavily in my favor to live a Fire Blast, and 2 Leaf Storms is obviously going to KO this Clefable and put a ton of offensive pressure on his team. So, rather than go out into my Alolan Muck, which I think loses a lot of momentum if he just goes out and sacks his Tyranitar or goes out into his Piloswine, I think either of those plays lose a lot of momentum for me. So, what I'd rather do here is go into my Superior, say I'm going to risk this roll. Heavily in my favor, so I'm just going to go out here and click Leaf Storm as he stays in actually, and goes for the Fire Blast, and unfortunately misses the Fire Blast. So like I mentioned, this roll was heavily in my favor, but obviously missing the Fire Blast really sucks, because now instead of being in range of like Ice Shard from his Piloswine, I'm at full health on my Superior, and he has to switch out here, so he's got to sack off his Tyranitar to this Leaf Storm coming out from my Superior. Tyranitar was pretty useless versus me at the end of the game here. I have my Hariyama, I have my Rotom Wash, I have this Superior. There wasn't a whole lot it was going to do, so sacking off the Tyranitar is definitely the right move. The Clefable is still a pretty big threat to like my Hariyama, for example. And he goes out into Infernape, so because he's gone out into my Infernape, I'm at +4, like, he must be Choice Scarf, because otherwise he's just going to die. So he must be Choice Scarf Infernape, but he makes a really nice play here and goes for U-turn. Again, I'm still thinking this is Choice Scarf Infernape, but I was trying to catch a Flare Blitz here, of course, with my thick fat Hariyama, but he goes for U-turn here, makes a really nice play, gets right back out into his Clefable, and again, I can't risk my Hariyama. It beats the other 2 members of his team, so I have to go out into something else. Rotom Wash is kind of going to be my best play here. Obviously, I'm going to fake out to kind of stall out some turns, get some chip off on him, get a little bit more leftovers recovery, but out of the 4 Pokemon left on my team, I feel like Rotom Wash has the least use overall, and I also guaranteed live a Moonblast from this thing because, once again, it is definitely timid Clefable, and Moonblast max roll is 60%, and my Rotom Wash is at 61%, so I'm going to go out into my Rotom Wash. Again, of course, like, he's got no reason to click anything other than Moonblast here. I don't have any Fairy Resists left on the team, so I'm going to go out into my Rotom Wash here. I guaranteed live his Moonblast here and should be able to KO back with the Hydro Pump because he is more offensive looking. He goes for the Moonblast here and unfortunately gets the max roll. Again, I guess the roll doesn't really matter in this instance, but the special attack drop is kind of unfortunate because now he doesn't drop to a Hydro Pump. So I'm still going to click it here because he hasn't shown me Moonlight or anything like that, or Soft Boiled. So I'm going to go for Hydro Pump here, as you can see, with the special attack drop. I don't KO this Clefable, unfortunately, but it's not such a huge deal because he goes for the Soft Boiled here, and now that I know he has Soft Boiled, I think he's going to go for a couple of them so he can get out of range of my Superior's Leaf Storm. So what I'm actually going to do here is Volt Switch directly into my Alolan Muck. This is obviously a little bit risky, like if he just goes for Moonblast, I'm in a little bit of trouble. But basically he can't heal up and beat down my Muck at the same time. So if he clicked Moonblast this turn, he's going to 2-hit KO my Muck, but he would be in range of a Leaf Storm from my Superior. So I felt like this was the best play overall, was just Volt Switching out into my Muck, and we do catch a Soft Boil from him. So that's amazing here. I can pretty freely click Poison Jab here. Like, I'll be honest, for a really long time, actually I might not be 2-hit KO by Moonblast just based on this damage, but sitting here, I sat here for a little bit thinking about doubling into Rotom Wash, predicting the Piloswine switch in, try and get a little bit of leftovers recovery, maybe burn the Piloswine to help out my Superior a little bit. So I really heavily considered making that double, but eventually I decided, okay, it's fine to just click Poison Jab here. I get the % chance to poison on the Piloswine. I can always sack the Rotom Wash to the Piloswine if it comes in. Like, I felt like my best play was just to stay in and click Poison Jab, and we do catch the Moonblast from that Clefable and are able to knock it out in return with a Poison Jab. So that was kind of the last big threat on his team, because obviously I've got my Hariyama to deal with the other 2. So that was huge there, getting that turn right. I don't know necessarily what his thought process was in that turn. Like, maybe he was trying to catch the double into Rotom Wash, because this is basically a game of sacks at this point. Like, how many times was he going to kill something with either Infernape or Clefable before I end up killing his Infernape or Clefable, essentially. So managed to get that turn right, thankfully, with my little Muck, knock out that Clefable, and I've really got no reason to keep my little Muck around at this point. It's clearly not going to do anything to the Piloswine, so I just like to get a little bit of Shadow Sneak chip off on this Infernape, potentially land a Poison as well, but able to get a little bit of chip off in the Infernape. It goes for close combat. Again, I'm pretty sure this is Choice Scarf Infernape, so Superior should live a hit and be able to just click Leaf Storm here, but the better play, I think, is to just go out into Hariyama, click Knockoff here. Close combat's not a terrible option, but if I click Close Combat and he goes down to Piloswine, my defenses are going to get dropped, and then I'm going to have to click another one. My defenses are going to get dropped again. So I feel like Knockoff into Close Combat is roughly equivalent at this point. If I knock off the Choice Scarf on his Infernape, he loses to Superior. So I felt like Knockoff was just kind of the best overall play. Remove the Eviolite from the Piloswine, and now I can just click Close Combat. He can't switch in his Infernape on me, and this Piloswine will drop. And I'm running a good bit of speed investment, so I'm pretty sure I'm going to outspeed him here, and there's not much he'd be doing to me in return anyways. So Close Combat, going to pick up the KO on this Piloswine, and I still technically don't know what his Infernape set is. He could be Choice Banded, and a Choice Band crit Close Combat will knock me out with the defense drops here, so actually he might not even need a crit if he's Choice Band. So my guaranteed win here is to just go out into Rotom Wash, sack it off to whatever move he wants to lock himself into. He essentially has to lock himself into Close Combat because I do have my Hariyama still kicking around. So he clicks Close Combat there, and like I mentioned, my guaranteed win was to swap out the Hariyama, reset my defense drops, and I can just go right back out into it. Quick Fake Out to get a little bit more leftovers recovery, just in case, like I mentioned, he is Choice Banded and gets a crit on me. So I'm just going to go for Fake Out here, get a little bit more chip off, and get pretty close to full health. And I think this does actually put me out of range. That little bit of HP, I think, did put me out of range of a Choice Band Close Combat crit from the Infernape. So able to get out of range there, and we're just going to clean up the game with my Hariyama here. Hariyama, once again, putting in the finest of work. We have a Mega Mawile on this team, right? It's come to 1 game, and it's 0-1. We have a Hariyama on this team as well. It's come to 2 games, and it's 6-0 right now. Like, that's ridiculous. What's a Hariyama doing at 6-0 after 2 games? Like, oh my god, this thing is a monster. I love using this Pokemon already. I don't know why, but it's amazing. Very, very good game to Leo. He brought some really cool sets. The Life Orb Clefable was super, super good. Choice Band Tyranitar could have been a huge, huge threat versus my team. And the SD Mold Breaker Excadrill was also really, really cool. I really liked his prep on that end. It was a very, very good game. He's a very good player. He's sitting at 0-2 now, but I definitely think he's got a very good shot at playoffs, like with his team and with how good he is at the game. I'm sure he'll bounce back, but on our end, definitely a good win to pick up early in the season. Beating kind of one of the favorites of the league is always a good thing to start out. And hopefully the pickems people will start picking me soon. Like, we have a little pickems channel on the Discord, right? And in my first matchup, the other guy was favored like 8 votes to 2. And I think it was something similar for this game, like 8 votes to 2 or 8 votes to 1 or something. So maybe people will start picking me now that I've won 2 games. Especially with a Hariyama. But yeah, we'll see going forward. Definitely a good start to the season for us. It is a 10-game season, so definitely getting strapped in here. We're only at the beginning of it. Definitely going to try to keep winning going forward. But for now, we're sitting at 2-0 plus 7, so good start to the season for us. Again, very good game to Leo. And thank you guys all very much for watching. If you did to this point, I hope to see you around in another video later.